welcome once again to Civil Engineering Today, brought to you by the Boston Society of Civil Engineers. I'm Cristina Fragoso.
And I'm Brockman. And the call-in number today is 617-708-3290 if you want to make a call-in.
Okay, yep. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be visiting a piece of infrastructure that's very near and dear to civil engineers' hearts, and one of those little life luxuries that we just don't know how good it is until it's gone: water. So we have with us some very special guests. I'd like to introduce Michael Scipione. He's the president of Weston & Sampson and has over 25 years of civil engineering experience. He serves on the ACEC Mass Board of Directors and is the board liaison to ACEC Mass Environmental Affairs Committee. Mr. Scipione earned a Master of Science degree in Environmental Engineering from Northeastern University, a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Worcester Polytechnic, and he's a resident of Walpole, Mass. He's registered as a professional engineer in the states of Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. Wow. And Vermont. All right. Mr. Scipione, he's also been an active participant in national and regional professional organizations throughout his careers. So, welcome.
Thank you.
And then next we have Abbie Goodman. She's the Executive Director for the American Council of Engineering Companies, which is ACEC. She's also Director of External Affairs for the Engineering Center Education Trust. ACEC Mass is a very important organization to us. They are a business association of the Massachusetts engineering community, and they have over 120 member firms representing more than 7,000 employers. Member design, water, building, environmental, transportation, educational, and recreation infrastructure, enabling residents to drink clean water, take advantage of new technologies, and travel safely and efficient. Welcome, Abbie.
Thank you.
Welcome, Abbie. Welcome, Mike.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about water, and one of the things that's happening recently is the Water Infrastructure Finance Coalition report has come out. And there's been a creation of a new alliance based on that called the Water Infrastructure Alliance, and they're looking to implement parts of that report. But before we get into that, Michael, if you can just tell us, why is water infrastructure important to us as a society?
Well, I think as a society, the United States and most developed countries take their water for granted. We were lucky enough in this region to have installed water mains and water systems well over 100 years ago in many of the areas. And because of that, good water quality most people have in their homes. There are parts of the world clearly that don't have the luxury that we have in this country. And having good water quality leads to much better quality of life, much better health, and much better economic growth.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I heard back when they first put in the first pressurized lines that they actually had parades. They were so happy to have water, clean water coming to their houses.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably butcher the statistic, but it's the American Medical Association that once upon a time said that the number one change in increasing the lifespan of humans was, clean water and cleaning up sewage. It all involved water.
It is, absolutely. But now that you're talking about it, we're hearing that it's a little bit old. It's over 100 years old. So if you can talk to us, basically, how did some engineers get together and bring this information, make it known to our leaders? How did that come about?
Well, I would like to say it started mostly with the cities and towns. They had needs, and with some of the funding shortfalls that they had, they found that they weren't able to keep up with the water infrastructure because it's sort of out of sight and out of mind. Most of it's below ground. If you have a street that needs paving, people notice it, they hit potholes. Yeah. But if you have a water main that's leaking or a wastewater system that's leaking, you don't see it right away. And so with the funding, some of the funding shortfalls, the city and towns were finding that they didn't have the ability to keep up with the system the way that they needed to. And a number of engineers that do work for cities and towns were able to bring that to the attention of some of the state representatives and senators, and had some real good help from the politicians that saw the need to help improve the systems that we have.
Can I give a little background?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sure. How did it come about? I've been waiting. I was going to ask.
Mike makes a really good point that it was the needs of the cities and towns, but part of the spark for this was a coalition that was formed more than 10 years ago called the Massachusetts Infrastructure Investment Coalition. And it was formed by the American Council of Engineering Companies of Massachusetts, the Boston Society of Civil Engineers, and the Massachusetts Association of Land Surveyors and Civil Engineers, along with a lot of other partners. And we started to produce some reports on infrastructure, the status of infrastructure in Massachusetts. We did one on water.
Right.
We did one on wastewater. We also did transportation, dams,
Right.
and other topical areas. But the water and wastewater ones really caught some attention, not only from municipal officials who needed our help, but also at the State House. So we formed a coalition, a sub-coalition, a water coalition of sorts, and we drafted legislation to create a Water Infrastructure Finance Commission. And fought for passage of that legislation. Our whole engineering community fought for it along with municipal officials, and we got it through, and then that led to the creation of the commission.
Now, I know that they focused a lot on the investment gaps that there are. So can you tell us a little bit, not necessarily hard dollar amounts, but what sorts of money gaps did they find? What do we need to do?
Well, there's there's actually three areas of water that are thought about. One is the water system for clean drinking water, public drinking water. One is the dirty water system, for lack of a better term, for the wastewater,
Right.
When you flush your toilets. And the third is stormwater. And that's sort of the next frontier because we haven't done all the work that's necessary in the stormwater. But it's estimated there's about $10 billion worth of a funding gap in the clean water, drinking water side, and about $11.2 billion on the wastewater, dirty water side, and upwards of $18 billion on the stormwater side. So this is a very large number.
Is it Massachusetts only, or is it
That's Massachusetts only.
Massachusetts only? Wow, because, I'm not a water engineer, I do geotech, but the alarm all over the coast for stormwater runoff has been going off, so I
Right.
can't imagine what the total amount is for everything.
But we've had some incredibly, big undertakings in the stormwater, the combined sewer
Yes.
overflow area lately. So it's actually a very complex system because it's different types of, every type of water you're talking about is handled differently. Who handles what? What do the towns do? What does the state do? What does, like Boston Water and Sewer do versus?
Well, it's very different. It's in Boston, the MWRA treats the wastewater and provides the water supply for the metropolitan Boston area and a number of communities around it. But then there's different entities like in the city of Boston, Boston Water and Sewer actually is in control of the pipes and the distribution of that water and the collection of the wastewater. And in some of the towns in the area, the towns are. So there's a whole network of pipes underground that have different political boundaries and different people that are in charge of them. And ultimately, those folks are all responsible to the ratepayers and the customers.
So when we say it's going downhill, I mean, I know it must mean that something, there's leaks in the pipes, but to the average person on the streets, what are the noticeable, when the water infrastructure goes downhill, what happens?
Yeah, I think he's asking, if we're not paying attention, if we don't come through and fill these investment gaps, what can happen?
There'll be many more emergencies. We have seen some emergencies in various systems. During the wintertime, you'll see freeze-thaw effects that happen and pipe breaks that shut down roads or collapse bridges, or people have been without water for up to a week in some of the more remote areas of this state. And that's a public health issue.
Or even longer. I just came from an event from the Mass Water Pollution Control Association, and the mayor of Gloucester talked about how they were under a boil water order for 20 days.
Oh.
Yep.
Can you imagine what that would do to families?
And that was due to a break.
And that was due to a
That
break. It was
was due to a
due to
break.
old infrastructure, and they have some real challenges up there with their water and their wastewater infrastructure.
And, can you tell us a little bit, maybe after the report came out, the Water Alliance was formed? Is that how the history? And they are making recommendations based on that report. Can you talk about some of the recommendations?
Sure. The Water Infrastructure Finance Commission finished their work and recommended that a different group take it forward. And several of the main items that they talked about was working and determining ways to closing the funding gap and also to increase public awareness because the public just doesn't know. When asked, the public typically believes that the water systems are in need of repair and are willing to pay more for it, but they really don't have a good handle on how much that is and what the needs really are.
And I know we can let them know that if they visit engineers.org, we'll have some links for anyone in the public that wants to get involved or get more information, read the reports.
Right, we do have the report posted on that website, and in addition, I provided a slide, which they're probably looking for in the control room, on my flash drive, which is if people want to sign up to get more information. We've created a survey, and people can put their information in there. But going back to the recommendations, the Water Infrastructure Finance Commission made recommendations about the need for public education because they recognize that a lot of people take the system for granted. You don't see the pipes, they're underground.
Not till it's broken.
Right, you don't see the water treatment plant, you don't see the sewage treatment plant, you don't pay attention to the stormwater coming off the roads and bridges or parking lots. You don't see it until something goes wrong. But like anything else, the roof on your house, your car, anything else, you have to maintain it, and they have to be paid. You have to pay to maintain those systems. So the Water Infrastructure Finance Commission has also recommended that the cities and towns that run water and sewer systems form enterprise funds so that they can take the money that they're collecting from the ratepayers and put it into those funds, develop capital budgets that are transparent, that people can see years in advance, that they do more planning than they've been able to do in the past. They've recommended rate increases up to what's called 1.25% of median household income. So if the average income in a particular town is $60,000 a year, you want to make sure that you're not putting such a burden on ratepayers with rates that they really can't afford to absorb in the context of everything else that they're doing. At the same time, they want to make sure that cities and towns are using best management practices. Are they doing the things with technology, with management skills that are going to give us the most efficient systems possible? Are they doing regular maintenance? And then beyond that, they've identified these gaps in funding. So even with all those things put into place, we still need additional funding to bring those 100-year-old systems up to current standards and to move forward.
So what are there any technologies now, do you think that could be easily retrofitted to an existing situation, or?
Well, there's improvements in technologies every year, and some of the older technologies still work just fine, so those would be implemented. But in addition to the technologies improving, the need to treat water and wastewater to a higher degree to give better water quality for public health and the environment is becoming more important. So as the regulations tighten down so that people are safer, you'll see higher cost and more of the newer technologies being used in order to treat the water and the wastewater, and stormwater too.
It occurs to me too, it's not just a matter of it being old, we have a population swell, so it's a capacity issue as well.
In some areas, yes, it is. It's an extension of the water systems in order to serve the population.
This is coming out of the blue, so I don't know if either one of you know this, but on average, say you're a smaller community, but you now have a population that requires a wastewater treatment facility. How long does it take to permit something into existence?
Most systems that are moving forward are well between 5 and 10 years to implement portions of them. Chatham has just done a major increase. They had a very small system, and they made a decision to extend the wastewater system and to upgrade their wastewater treatment plant back several years ago. And they're on an accelerated schedule because they were able to receive some grants through the ARA program. And they've installed some sewers and upgraded the treatment plant in about 3 or 4 years since the planning had occurred and since they made a decision to move forward. The planning was in place for maybe 15 years before that.
Ouch.
So it's a long, involved process.
It is. It's always so surprising to me. I don't know why.
It feels to me that there's a piece of this is actually, public awareness plays a big part in this. I know that there's been some efforts. I know that last year with the Future City competition, the theme was stormwater, and all the students were challenged with, explaining how they were going to handle stormwater within it. But do you think that there's things that if you could get a message out to the public, what would be the message? What should people do? What practices should be changed that would really help the water infrastructure?
Why don't you take this?
On the public outreach side, we're focusing on part of a national campaign sponsored by the Water Environment Foundation called Water's Worth It. And So we'll be using some of their materials to help municipal officials educate ratepayers, educate students in schools, and a range of other people in their communities about the importance of our water systems. And that's a baseline. Let's make sure that people are aware of it. MWRA has done some programs in the past with kids in school talking about water conservation, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. If you want to ask people to pay more money for their systems, we're going to have to do more education.
Right.
Well, you can feel free to use this videotape.
We
Yeah,
pass
exactly.
it around all you like.
Not only the tape, but we'll
When we
get it
have
up
the
on
campaign
YouTube and-
ready to launch, we'll bring the materials to you.
So what else can be done as far as recommendations to meet the recommendations they've come up with?
Well, right now, legislatively,
Yes.
some state leaders have filed legislation. So the co-chairs, the legislative co-chairs of the commission were Senator Jamie Eldridge and Representative Carolyn Dykema. They both filed a series of bills
That's
that would implement some of the recommendations of the commission. In the case of best management practices, there's a bill that would give incentives to cities and towns in going to loan funds for money. They would get more points in the system if they implemented some of these practices. In the case of enterprise funds, they'd also get a higher rating that would give them access to more money. So we're going to incentivize them to do some of the things that are necessary to get them to a baseline standard, and then beyond that, the state is going to have to step in and look at some other revenue sources.
Okay, now I'm not the best at economics, so my questions can sometimes be simple, but I'm hearing a lot more. I know that a lot of the projects I'm working on just in the past couple years have gone to the private-public partnerships. Is there anything being done? Are there any private industries? I mean, there's a lot of industries in Massachusetts. They don't have clean water. They stand to lose a lot. So, I mean, you see any private enterprises coming forward, helping us in our campaign?
The business community is definitely interested in this, and we do have business partners through Associated Industries of Massachusetts and NIOP, the real estate group. They're part of our coalition, the Water Infrastructure Alliance, working with us on this, and then we'll bring other businesses into it. But again, it's education for them too. Water is not top of mind to people unless they need it in the manufacturing process or they don't have access to it.
But that's great that you're getting their attention at all. I know it's very difficult sometimes to get business to, I know they just released the failure to act, and that was one of the things they wanted to go out there and educate the business community, because they're really a powerhouse when it comes to support and adjusting some issues. So I don't want to say, do you have any closing statements, but what do you really want to let us know about water infrastructure? I mean, tell us why it's so important to you.
Well, I would suggest that the water infrastructure, the pipes below the ground, and the systems that supply them are critical to public health and environmental health, as well as to economic growth and creation of jobs, which is very important to pretty much everybody in the developed areas. So it needs to be considered, needs to be understood, it needs to be thought about, and it needs to be focused on.
And where do you see us going as far as what can we do right now? I mean, obviously doing the show, but
Right.
after
Well,
this,
doing
what
the show
can
is
we do?
a great standpoint. Well, I think I guess they can't get the slide up, but what we are doing, we are providing an opportunity for people to sign up if they want to get more information, if they want to tap into the public education resources, and we'll go from there.
Okay. All right, so once again, for the public, if you want to get involved, we're looking for everybody's help to understand, and I'm sure, once you hear it, it's obvious, of course, we all love clean water. So if you go to engineers.org, you'll have those links, and they can sign up there as well, get
We'll
more
provide
involved.
Right, that's simple,
Great.
just engineers.org.
Engineers.org. So I want to thank you both so much for coming on the show and telling us, what's going on. We see all these, different alliances and reports coming out, and it's nice to have people that can break it down and explain it to us so we really understand that we are moving forward. And I know, Reed, you might have some
Have a couple activities that are happening. And
outreach events.
Right, outreach events as usual. We have, coming up in the next, we actually have a one-week contest that's going on right now, and all the teams that participated in the Future City competition are in the process of designing transportation systems, a new transportation system for New England, and we'll be releasing those on the 19th, on March 19th. March 19th is also the release of the American Society of Civil Engineers Infrastructure Report Card, And
Very important. We will
water
do a
is
show
one of
on
the
it.
major issues, and transportation is a major issue. So we just picked one topic. We picked transportation and having students focus on that. We'll release that, and then we'll have, I think we're going to have an open posting them all up on the internet, and people can vote. And
We'll put that on
coming through
engineers.org as well.
engineers.org, which links to bsces.org and engineeryourfuture.org. All these websites all sort of link together.
We'll have links. And just because I'm looking down, we all have water. I think we should do a little toast, clean water.
This is
To
clean
clean
water.
water,
Clean
clean
water.
water.
Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Thank
and
you,
we'll see you
everybody.
next month.